Welcome to Nuanced Beauty, because the world is nuanced and we think that's beautiful. Hi guys, welcome back to Nuanced Beauty. Today I have another interview episode with my friend Cheryl. Cheryl and I met here in Jacksonville, and we are in the same small group, which means we practically get together every single week. And she is wonderful. I specifically brought her on to talk professionally about what it's like being a real estate broker. If you guys have tuned into our show for some time, you might recall Bill and I doing a recording about when and where to buy a home. And we've also brought on a realtor from Seattle to talk about the home buying process from her angle. And so, in an effort to continue this conversation and jump into more nuance, I thought it would be nice to bring on a mortgage broker and see what she has to say about the process of securing a mortgage loan to buy a home. I would say this job seems to be the less glamorous behind the scenes task that is so vital to buying a home unless you have cash. So with that, welcome, Cheryl. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much Christina for having me.
Yeah. Can you give the listeners sort of a brokering 101 explanation of what your role is in the process?
Yes. And what you said about it not being glamorous is so true. We don't go out and show houses and do all the fun pieces like that, but we basically take care of when you find a home to closing, all that's in between that piece.
Okay.
Most people can't afford a home unless they have cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who has $100,000, $200,000
or $500,000?
Yes. Why did I say 100,000? There's no homes in the area for 100,000. So we basically help the person find out what they're approved for in the beginning for their realtor, so that way they have an idea of what their budget is. So when they go out for a home, they're not just putting offers in for things they can't afford and they don't qualify for. So we make sure they're qualified and they meet all the guidelines that you need to get a mortgage. And then once they go under contract, we take care of gathering documents, ordering the appraisals, yada, yada, and things like that. So,
okay. Yeah. I was kind of thinking back to our home buying experiences. And so we had our first home and then we sold the first home, bought our second home. And in the home buying for the first home, we banked with Navy Federal. So I feel like we had no interactions whatsoever with a broker or lender. We had this initial qualification, fill out the online survey. And then we had this pre-qual letter. And then at closing, we had one call where we had this huge stack of papers in front of us. So we had no interaction. But then with selling our home, we had way more involvement. In fact, one of our offers, our realtor selling could not get a hold of the broker. So we went with a different buyer. So it was this eye-opener to see oh, I didn't even know who this person was and what they were doing in the background. And then with our second home, we went with a different lender than Navy Fed because we saw the value in what a lender does. I was kind of wondering if, given that, do you think that this, my experience was maybe a typical experience where you don't see the lender at all, or you'd have to dig deep to even really talk to a broker?
That's a great question. So lenders are not all the same, and Navy Federal is a bank. So you're going to get a totally different experience with a bank than you are with a retail lender and a wholesale lender. So there's different types of lenders out there. As a broker, I definitely have my hands in everything more. And even every broker is not the same. I am an over communicator. So I like to tell people every step of the process. I like to contact them almost daily
And that's what it felt like with our second person. So it was a much different experience. Do you happen to know like stats? Do most people go with a broker or with a bank or 50-50?
It really just depends. You have people that are a little more knowledgeable and they will shop around and they'll talk to a few different, whether it's a bank or a lender or a broker. And then you have people that just start to say, hey, I know a guy, he's really great. And
similar to a realtor.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
Exactly. So,
or do what your parents did, maybe.
Exactly. So I do get most of my business from referrals.
Okay.
And if someone does shop me, I usually can win it because of my communication and because I can shop different carriers, brokers too. That's another thing is we shop different lenders. So that way we can get you the best
different options that might not find at a bank as a lender.
Banks very
rigid, specific.
Minimal, exactly.
Yeah, there's just a few products. Like there was a list of like 7 or 8 options and those were your options. And there you go.
That even sounds like a lot for a bank.
Yeah, oh, okay. Yeah. At the time they had a thing that would compete with a VA loan without being a VA loan. So like a 0% down, no PMI.
Okay.
Because they were competing.
Gotcha.
And then they had the conventional loan and they had like maybe an I don't know.
FHA.
I don't know. Yep. Some basics. Yep. That was so okay. That was a more than standard.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I think you just kind of answered that, but I was going to ask how interactive, not just with the client, but how interactive you would be with the realtor versus the client.
So the realtors that I work with, I try to keep in contact up until they get the buyer that they are referring. And then we're very involved in the beginning, getting them pre-qualified. And then once they're under contract, the realtor, I just give them updates maybe once a week. So that kind of falls off to the side. And then it turns over to me and the borrower, the buyer, talking regularly, telling them what I need, keeping them up to date, especially first-time home buyers.
Okay.
They need to be contacted more often. I give everyone my cell phone number. So I get text messages and I tell people, you can contact me anytime. But if
you can keep it on a good time,
I might not get back to you. But yeah. And I have had people text me at 4 a.m, which is not fun and usually not someone I want to work with.
Yeah. Like you have a life too, guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. So in regards to being a broker, I wanted to kind of zoom into the various home loans. And I think that there's a traditional thought that you need 20% down or you're not going to be qualified. And I think a lot of people know that that's not the case anymore, or they have kind of a cynical outlook that it's not even possible to have 20% on a first home. Mm-hmm. But would you mind expanding on that and maybe how the guidelines have changed?
Yes. So you'll have your parents tell you need 20% down because that's how it used to be. But these days, most people don't have that kind of cash just laying around. You, as a first-time home buyer, traditional mortgage is 3% down for first-time home buyer. Otherwise, you can go as low as 3.5 to 5% down, depending on the loan program. Mm-hmm. And there's even some assisted programs where you can do 0% down or 1% down. They all have different qualifications, but 20% down, the reason why you hear that is because if you have 20% down, you don't have mortgage insurance on a conventional loan. Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So, but what people usually do is they just put down what they can, 3%, 5%, or even 10%. Mm-hmm. Once that loan to value, they call it, reaches that 80% or 20% down, that mortgage insurance is going to fall off anyway.
Right.
So, and the more you put down, the smaller that mortgage insurance payment's going to be, that PMI.
Yeah. And I think that obviously there's room for a discussion or pushback in the idea of, like financially, is that really the best move for you? And that's where I think you just have to make your decision, right? I feel that with Bill and I, we went through Dave Ramsey class and we got on the same page. We communicated, we got rid of all of our debt, but our mortgage. And we didn't have 20% down on our first home, but we felt like it was time. It was time. So we took the plunge. And the thing is, we just had awareness and an acknowledgement that this is a decision that we're making and we're not making it blindly.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we chose to go ahead and proceed and buy a home rather than continue renting. And that's where, of course, there's like varying opinions on it. But I don't know, with increasing rent prices today and just the level of fluctuation and uncertainty at the end of your 1 year rental, I kind of like the consistency, even if it is at the cost of PMI. And of course, in our case, with the military background, we didn't have the PMI. So we were very fortunate.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
You made a lot of good points. So renting, the thing about renting is you're paying someone else's mortgage, and they are still gaining equity in that home. So they can turn around and sell it, even though they bought it a while ago and have the same mortgage payment. They can raise your rent, and they're going to make more and more each year as they raise your rent.
Right.
And then they're going to turn around and sell it for way more than they bought it for, and they're going to keep all that equity.
Right.
So Dave and I made the mistake of my husband of renting for years, and we lived in very expensive places, San Diego, Denver, Nashville.
Yes.
And we made the mistake of, we can't afford to buy here. We'll just pay $2,000, $2,500 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And now that I know what I know, I kick myself because we could have bought back when it was quote unquote expensive, but when we would have sold, we would have probably made $100,000,
and it would have went into your next home.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what we experienced. So yeah, there's totally trade-offs there, I think, and I would obviously discourage somebody from being totally home poor.
Yes.
And that's where I would say, I mean, I think you as a broker, you check out their debts, what they're paying debts, so that they can't get over 50% or something
Usually
like that.
50%. That's for conventional. It's different for each loan program, but yes, between 50 and 60 is typical. But I always urge people, even to be
closer to 30 or 40, probably. So you have room for surprises or buying a home or family expanding, and there's other expenses. So I think at the end of the day, that is where I could totally get behind. Don't be house poor. Don't buy where you are already stretched to meet your mortgage payment. But within reason, just know what you're signing up for.
And your first home doesn't have to be your dream home. Get in something that is going to be good with your budget and plan on building that equity so that you can, on your next property, get the home that you want.
Or like a townhome or a condo, the starter that you are going to build equity. Yeah, totally. So another misconception that I've heard is in regards to a buyer needing to show a steady income to qualify for a loan, steady income over 2 years. But of course, there are a lot of folks who work hospitality or possibly working in restaurants with heavy tipping. And then for Bill and I, in our case, we worked out on ships and we had a 75-day on-off rotation. So we made bank for 75 days and then we made nothing besides vacation paycheck and benefits for the next 75. So it was a very irregular income, but it is possible to qualify for a home. What are the options for someone like that?
Yep, that's correct. Typically, you'll hear you need 2 years of steady income. If you have, like you said, that shift work or contract work, it sounds like almost, as long as you can supply that 2-year history. And then usually you have to write what's called a letter of explanation that says like, hey, I work shift work. That's why there's a gap in my employment. And then you just show your pay stubs and your W-2s or tax returns. That's all these underwriters want to see. Now, as far as those who have tip jobs or self-employed jobs where say their tax returns don't show what they fully made. There are other types of loans out there. They're called non-qualified loans. So you have your conventional, your VA, your USDA, your FHA. Those are considered your qualified mortgages. And then there's unqualified mortgages.
Okay.
And those are, I mean, I can give you a list
And
of them, but
would that kind of be from the person lending the money? Would that just be a slightly riskier loan for them?
correct. So it's
Being not
usually
conventional.
correct. So it's usually private investors or private banks that do those loans.
Okay.
And so there's different lenders that will.
And is the reward, is it kind of the idea of like there's a little higher risk for them, but they have a greater reward because the percentage might be higher?
Correct.
Okay.
It's exactly right. It's usually depending on the program and the situation. The worse the situation of that the buyer has, the higher the interest rate's going to be. So the riskier it is, I've had 2% higher than what a qualified mortgage is. I'm closing 2 next week that are only 0.75% higher. So it just depends.
It's varied. Okay.
Yes.
Now you mentioned underwrite. That's not something you do, right?
Correct.
Underwriter is a different role.
Right. So I am in constant communication with underwriters. So underwriters work for the lenders. They're the ones that review, just like with life insurance. You have an underwriter who reviews the person who qualifies, and they have to have an unbiased view of the file, let's say. So they don't talk to the client directly. They view their information, and they'll come back to you and say, well, can you clarify this? Can you ask the client this? Can you get this document?
So sort of a third party vet.
Yes.
In it with representation to the lender.
And they have a better understanding of guidelines. I know a lot of the guidelines, but that's not
your forte.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so we've kind of worked through the initial loan qualification process. Let's jump ahead to the closing process. So we've got a buyer. They got through all the fun of touring all the homes. And what happens on the broker side once that buyer has an accepted home offer in hand? I'm guessing this is where you show up.
Yes. This is where it's I take
bread and butter.
Yep.
Okay.
So I try to make it as easy as possible for people. I try to gather as much as I can when we do what's called the pre-approval, which is before they even start looking at homes.
Yeah.
So I have a good idea of what I'm going to need. So when they do go under contract, I just tell them you need this X, Y, and Z. So it's documents, it's pay stubs, W-2s, some not very exciting information.
Okay.
And then it all goes to underwriter. They review it, and then they'll come back and say we need some other things. The other thing is we order what's called an appraisal. That is what they go out and see what the value of the home is. So we do that too. We help with homeowners insurance. So there's a lot of other people that we're dealing with during the process to make sure it all comes together for closing.
Okay.
But we can do it in 30 days or less typically. So,
okay. Yeah. And I'm guessing 30 days is still kind of the standard with Navy Fed. They told us 45. It was related heavily to the appraisal with our lender here, given our sell of our other home, the amount we were putting down, we closed in like closer to 20.
Oh, good. That's good. I thought you were going to say the opposite, because you hear, they'll say 30 days and then it gets pushed out to 40 or 45 because the appraisal took too long or something like that. So that's good. Yeah. And 20 days is definitely doable, especially in this market right now.
Oh, yeah.
And when it was much busier. Yes.
A year
crazy.
ago.
Oh my gosh. Appraisals were taking like 30, 45 days. We had to make people pay extra.
And that was really your, I guess that was really your long lead. Like the appraisal was the thing that was holding the loans.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we're getting them back within a week.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Is there anything else that you wish that a buyer would know about the closing process, or any hiccups that you regularly run into? And it's like, if only if I had a microphone and I could just tell you all these things to make my life easier, what would you say?
I would say plan ahead. So don't wake up tomorrow and say, I want to buy a house, and not have a plan. So talk to a lender or a mortgage person or someone at your bank even months in advance, maybe even a year ahead of time. Get your ducks in a row, because I talk to so many people that are so excited to buy a home, and they say, I pay so much in rent. I know it's a house here I saw on Zillow and it's the same price as my rent. First of all, Zillow is not accurate. But then I run their credit and then their credit is not good, or they don't have any credit at all, or they don't even have $1,000 in the bank. Now, even if you don't have any money you go with a program that doesn't have a down payment, like a VA loan, you still need something in the bank for closing costs, to pay for inspections. There might be some repairs that the seller's not willing to pay for. So you want to have some savings. Doesn't have to be 20%, but you have to have something. So that's what I would say is plan ahead, even before you get a realtor. Get the financials in place first.
Okay. Yeah. That's more vital than the realtor. Yeah. Okay.
Can't buy a house if you don't have the money.
Yeah. You're like, I'm sorry, I'm in the background, but I'm the one that says no, guys.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
Okay. Well, any other things to add there?
I would say, just like with a realtor, with the mortgage person as well, you might want to talk to a few if you really have no idea. Or if you don't get a good referral, I would say interview a couple of them.
So not all realtors are created equal.
Correct.
Not all brokers are created equal. Shop around.
Yes.
Okay. Let's shift gears and let's talk about the process of becoming a broker. If we had any listeners today who are exploring a different career and they're maybe wondering what it would look like to become a broker, let's talk about that. So, how did you get started in your job?
Oh, geez. Well, I've always been in the sales background, even though I don't see myself as a salesperson. I think I'm good at sales is because I can just talk to people. So you will have to talk to people a lot. So you have to be very comfortable going out, and I don't like to public speak. I don't like to go to like a place and just go up and talk
in a whole audience or such. Okay.
You have to do some of that, unfortunately.
Okay.
You have to be able to be very organized and multitask. There's so many different facets to this job. I mean, and especially even today with social media, that's where I struggle with marketing and social media. You have to be able to make social media posts.
Okay. Yeah.
But to become a broker, first thing you do is you get what's called an NMLS license. It's a hard test. I ain't gonna lie. It's really hard.
Okay. Is it a written multiple choice?
It's multiple choice, but there's training that you have to take. And then when you go in to take the test, even if you take all the practice tests they have, the questions are completely different than the practice tests. So you really have to have understanding
of the material.
A lot of people fail the first time.
Okay. And is there like a number of credit hours that you need to study for or put in writing or something?
It's been a while, but I mean, I think it was a 40-hour. I think it's a 40-hour course.
Okay. So there is a course, there's hours associated, and then there is this
test,
multiple choice test. Okay. Right. And a lot of people fail the first time through.
Yes.
Okay.
I did not, but that's because it was during COVID. And so I had a lot of
studying
time to
away.
Study. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then what happens after that?
Then you want to find a company that will train and that has good systems in place and that will support you.
Okay, so is it like a team of brokers? You want to find a team of brokers, or?
I wouldn't even say you need a team. You just want someone that's going to be supportive.
Okay.
I worked for a company, my first company I worked for, they didn't train. It was kind of, chaotic. Figure it out. And it was completely stressful. And now, it's been 4 years. I look back at that and I'm like, how did I even do it?
I survived.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So mentor, I guess ultimately, like not even necessarily a team, but find a mentor broker.
Yes.
To like learn the ropes from,
or someone that has a training program, just some type of training. You'll need it.
Okay.
And don't expect to know it all up front. It does take time. And even if you're in it for 10 or 20 years, I hear it all the time. Things are always changing. You're never going to know it all.
There's more to learn.
Yes.
Okay.
Always. There's always going to be questions. Yep.
Okay. And how long have you been at it now?
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years. Okay. What is the thing you have enjoyed most in the past 4 years?
So I love the flexibility. I do have kids, and my husband works very long hours. So it is nice to be able to work wherever I can. It's a blessing and a curse. But the thing I love the most is helping people. Closing day, when someone gets their keys, especially if they're a first-time home buyer, or I love my veterans too, or I mean, even I actually love all the buyers. I have investors too, but it's just
I don't discriminate. If I work with you, I love you.
But just when they're excited they close and they just say, "You made it so easy. This was great, a great process." It just
brightens your day.
Yeah.
Okay, you get the sense of accomplishment.
Yes. And then the other thing that I really love is meeting other people in the industry, like title folks and insurance people. They just all the different types of people that work in this industry. There's so much
pretty
to
good
learn.
Environment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And then what would you say you enjoy the least about the
going
job?
back to the flexibility and working from anywhere.
The blessing and the curse.
Yes.
Okay.
My computer is with me wherever I go. I've worked in the car. I've worked on vacation. I've worked sitting by the pool. Remember that time you came over to my house with your kids and you were going to sit by the pool?
Yeah, I feel like you said that you didn't have that many clients. You just had two, but they were two very, very particular clients, not them in like the personal sense, but their files were a bit much.
Yeah. And I barely got to hang out with you, and I apologize for that, but that's how it is. It's, some days are very busy, and I've had my kids tell me, "You work too much, get off your computer." So there's that. Yeah. So the other thing that I don't love about the job is I work for a small company, and there's a lot of large companies out there, and it's very competitive. So it's hard to be the little guy, going trying to get business.
Little fish in the big pond.
Yes.
Okay.
And you have, unfortunately, a lot of realtors, a lot of the bigger firms, they want something from you. I've heard realtors, they say, "You have to woo me, take me out to lunch, take me out to dinner. What are you going to give me?"
Okay.
I'm not like that. I want you to work with me because I give you good service, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to treat your clients great. And it's also illegal. It's so you're not supposed to be wooing these realtors, but it's very much happens in the business.
So there is I guess there's a know who you know sort of environment for it.
Yes.
Do realtor teams have preferred brokers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And is that where, I guess it almost sounds like it's on your shoulders to gain a reputation to become a preferred broker with realtor teams?
Correct.
Oh, so that's where you definitely need to be comfortable talking with people.
Oh, yes.
That's where that would come in. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, that kind of reminds me. It reminds me, and it's totally different. My mom has worked in makeup for, oh my gosh, I think, I'm going to say it wrong, 15 years or 20 years.
Wow.
Maybe even more, 15 or 20. Maybe it was just her 15th. It was a major milestone for her. And she is sweet as honey, and she does wonderful work, but cosmetics, and because it's commission based, I think that's what it is. The root of it, what is the similarity is it's commission based. So there's a level of, I expect this customer service from you, but then internally there are some people taking sales, or people trying to take clients, or like, "Oh, I'm not going to take that return. How about you take that return?"
Yes. And that happens with real estate and the mortgage business as well too.
Oh,
yeah. It can be a little cutthroat. Yeah. And I don't.
Hard part.
That's,
have some tough skin and be prepared that it's not all sunshine and roses.
Yes. And there's a lot of disappointment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on like the level of flexibility to be able to work whenever and wherever. And I'm sure there's a lot of pros and cons. I've asked this question I've had a hairstylist on the show, and I think people who are starting their own business and that. So how do you go about setting firm boundaries?
I was really bad in the beginning. My first year, I answered every single phone call. I would interrupt my children from even speaking. Oh, my phone's ringing. Hold on. I have to take this. It's so important. And I specifically remember one vacation I was on. I was busy at the time, as during crazy time, and things were going wrong on a couple of the files I was working on.
Okay.
And I had people that were telling me, enjoy your vacation. I got this. I got this. And I couldn't deal. I just broke down. And
oh no,
we were
yeah.
at Universal, and I just told my husband to just take the kids, and I can't go. Like, I have to work. So I had to learn how
to set a boundary.
Exactly. And realize like no one's going to die if I don't answer my phone. And, they weren't getting into that house that moment. So I need to just realize that
like recalibrate the level of importance.
Yes. So that's something you do have to learn. They tell you always answer your phone. But you really do have to put your family first. We have a rule that at dinner time, the phones are put away. They're across the room. Now, we only eat for like 30 minutes. So they can wait for 30 minutes.
I'll call you back soon, okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but it's hard. I will say it's hard because people want you to, their idea of urgent, you have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
It is urgent to them. So definitely you have to be responsive.
A level of professional. Yeah. But also you're human and you have a life and there's deadlines, but also, so yeah, that's a good point to draw out, because I do think that some folks see these flexible jobs. It's like, oh, you get to make your own schedule. That must be so awesome. And like you said, yeah, I get to vacation. I'm not tied to an office, but at the same time, you had to learn through a lot of it, hard experience, how to navigate when you're at work and when you're at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Cheryl, it's been lovely chatting with you. I think this was a great conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope your listeners got some good information today.
And the one other thing is, if someone wanted to reach out and is in the Jacksonville area and they are in the, home buying world right now, how could people contact you?
Yeah. And I actually work for the whole state of Florida. So you can just look up Forever Home Loans, or even if you just Google my name, Cheryl Grass.
Okay.
You'll be able to find me and connect.
All right. And I will put that in the show notes. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and you could disagree with, and still choose to lean in. Give us a follow, rating, and review, and consider sharing this episode with a friend to continue the dialogue and help us grow. Until next time.